Early on at the online publishing company, it was a day. It was a day full of frustrations, and I put on a little post-it note, um, "Pass the gin," and gave it to the managing editor, and she laughed. And so that sort of became a punchline for us, a go-to catchphrase. Uh, and so I started collecting bad, uh, these examples of bad writing, great examples of bad writing. I spent 28 years in print journalism in newspapers, 25 of those as an editor. I worked at the New York Daily
Mm-hmm.
News. I've worked at the Chicago Tribune, 8 years at the Bergen Record, which is now under a different name, but it was based in Hackensack, and it was a terrific paper, and I worked with fantastic editors and reporters there and everywhere that
Nice.
I've worked. Yeah, so along the way I've learned a lot from great copy editors, great line editors and assignment editors, and uh, in addition to what I had naturally, as you know, I was reading at a very young age, and I just had a great uh, love of and fascination for words, or with words, and so I was in college. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was majoring in communications because I figured I was going to go into broadcasting. And I got involved with the college paper and started writing soccer articles. And because I was involved in theater, I wrote about the theater, a column. And then I thought, well, I ought to know what the heck I'm talking about. So I took a journalism course. The journalism
Mm-hmm.
teacher was the editor of one of the local papers. He hired me as a proofreader in the advertising department. And from
Mm-hmm.
that, I became a reviewer of musical concerts and theater and so on. And from that, I became a reporter. And because the reporters seemed to be working much harder than the editors did, longer hours, and 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I saw the editors coming in at 8 p.m. and leaving before I was.
I can see where the story is going.
Yeah, I thought, what am I doing here? I can edit. My writing is good. I know how to move
Mm-hmm.
commas around, so I started doing that. And so I became a copy editor, and then I became a news editor, and I've been editing ever since. After the great journalism implosion of 2008, I went into online publishing, and the audience for that company was mostly uh, internal and external communicators, including PR and marketing
Mm-hmm.
people. And so that was our audience. And I realized, some of the articles that we were publishing were about language. They were about linguistics, so grammar and usage and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the managing editor at the time said, "Oh yeah, our readers love that stuff." I said, "Well, I can write that," and I started writing, and the response was great, and I mix in a little bit of humor in pretty much everything I do, and or try to,
Mm-hmm.
and so that the response was, "Give us more of this," and the traction and the traffic were terrific. So yeah, they said, "Oh, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing," and we did a funny video, and I can shoot you the link for that if you want. It's on YouTube, and it's and on and on and on. And then I started doing workshops and presentations, and through Twitter, I got involved working with Grammar Girl. She asked me to write some of her podcast episodes. This was in the very, very early going of the Grammar Girl podcasts. So I wrote half a dozen of those in the first year,
Mm-hmm.
and Mignon and I have become good friends, and we've worked together, and she plugged the book and all that. But I've made so many connections. Mark Allen, John McIntyre, all these people um,
Hmm.
through Twitter and through ACES, the Society for Editing. And so I've got this great network going, plus all the people that I have worked with over the years. So I had sort of a
Awesome.
built-in audience um, when the book when we published the book.
Awesome. Um, so when we well, actually, no, before we start that, I have a question that popped in my head while you're doing this. Were you always a line copy editor, or did you also branch into like the developmental stuff too?
I was not an assignment editor, but I was a news editor. And
Hmm.
news editors at a lot of papers are sort of
It's kind of like a different breed
it is
sometimes, I
it's
think.
the this is the cadre of editors, the team that puts together the paper. Basically, they decide on
Hmm.
story play, they decide on packaging, they work they coordinate photos and the articles and graphics, and they work with the
Hmm.
copy desk on headlines and captions and pull-out quotes and things like that. So it's the full package. This should be a
Right.
sidebar, and it's different, of course, for a broadsheet versus a tabloid, but basically it's the same thing. It's just a matter of scale. But uh, the that's fun packaging the news in that way, and then you you say, okay, well, this headline works fine for this story, but it's across from this other story on the other page, and they're going to clash. So it's a lot of
Oh,
teamwork.
that's neat. I never thought of
Yeah.
like a newspaper editor's job being that intricate.
Well, you can even have a problem with a headline that works against an advertisement next to it. I have a long involved story
Oh,
that I won't bore
interesting.
you with right
It's
now.
so convoluted.
Yeah, yeah. Well, put it this way: there was a story about airbags being recalled,
Hmm.
and that was atop a 6 column by 18-inch bra ad with lots of pictures.
Okay.
So the airbags on Ford models, and Ford being a modeling agency. So I took the headline down, rewrote it so it was not offensive or salacious in any way. So as
Okay.
a very wise man once said to me, you have to have a dirty mind to run a clean newspaper.
Okay. I can see how that you would need that. You would need to think of it from every possible interpretation.
Yeah, you kind of have to let your 9-year-old mind come to the fore sometimes and say, okay, that's dirty. And no, and then intercept because you don't want things being read the wrong way. Ambiguity is not good, especially when it can be a little risque in a family paper.
So what was your inspiration for the book? Why did you decide to compile your wealth of experience into this kind of form?
Um, Early on at the online publishing company, I it was a day. It was a day full of frustrations, and I put on a little post-it note, um, "Pass the gin," and gave it to the managing editor, and she laughed. And so that
Mhm.
sort of became a punchline for us, a go-to catchphrase. Uh, and so I started collecting bad, uh, these examples of bad writing, great examples of bad writing, to share with other
Mhm.
writers and editors on staff. And I had a bunch of them, and I was going to do a presentation called "Why Editors Drink." And
Mhm.
basically, I would have a bottle of wine or hooch or whatever, stage prop, whatever, water, iced tea,
Right.
whatever, and go through these examples. And, every time there was a bad example, I'd take a drink and get fake sloshed for the presentation, letting my acting background come through. Well, that never materialized, but the book did. And
Mhm.
so I arranged it into categories, chapters, and my wife Teresa, who illustrated the book and designed the cover and helped format and was the driving force for me to get it done. Um, really helped me package it and say, okay, well, you ended 3 chapters in a row with a drink reference. Now you don't have for these next two. You need a drink reference to as a nightcap, basically,
Mhm.
chapter. So
Right.
so that's how that came about. So in terms of consistency and making sure the theme was there, and doing putting the button on the chapter in each case, that was Teresa's drive and inspiration. I'm sorry. Then, of course, the for each chapter, she created illustrations that go with the theme of the chapter,
Nice.
whether it's up and on the rocks, which is contradictions, or
Mhm.
another round she just did shot glass after shot glass after shot glass. Um, a cocktail of mishaps. She has a tumbler with obviously whiskey on the rocks in there, and an ear of corn in there, which doesn't belong. So it's things that don't belong. It's one of these things is not like the other. And that was
Right.
her genius and inspiration. And they were done in black and white for the print version. Unfortunately, we didn't think, oh well, there's an online version that can use full
Mhm.
color. So unfortunately, that's black and white too, because she's just a marvelous artist, and I would just love to see what she would have done with the colors. Um, but anyway, the illustrations and the packaging and are great, and people just love the cover, which she also designed.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Good.
How did you No, how did you decide what category of errors goes with what drinks? Like,
Oh,
how did you go like, how did you categorize that? How did you figure that out?
it sort of wrote itself along the way. As
Yeah?
I was going, there was a thing about grammar, and I studied German
Mhm.
when I was in school. And German grammar, I don't know if you've ever studied it, is incredibly complex. So I went from English grammar to German grammar to German beer, and so there was a tie in there. Clarity
Uh-huh.
and claret. Um, so and I just
Okay.
in some places it was just arbitrary, and in some cases it was
Mhm.
very specific and um, purposeful.
Yeah. Like, I noticed, like, chapter 1 is just, like, an aperitif, like, just the little be getting you into it, and, like,
Yes.
I could see that, but as I was looking through the rest of the sample, I was wondering, like, well, how did he categorize these? Like, how did he just define what this error goes to what drink? I thought that
It
was
was
really
yeah,
interesting.
it sort of was, as it rolled out, or, "Oh, no, actually, this would be better with this group, and here's why." And so
Mhm.
there was some trial and error, and then some of it just kind of, flowed, just, out of the bottle into the glass.
Right. Symbolizing you just had a really bad day as an editor,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
this is why you're drinking at the end of it.
yeah, yeah, it's as one oh actually as Mignon herself said, it's like um, sitting around at the end of a hard day at happy hour, or a hard day at work during happy hour, griping with your fellow editors, except you don't have to go to a bar.
Mhm.
So that really encapsulates the spirit of
Mhm.
of the book, the intent, the humor, the camaraderie. This I wrote this book part full, partly um, as a writing guide to help people, because that's what I
Mhm.
did. That's what I've done for the past decade or so, is to write and say, okay, here's why this doesn't work. Here's how this could be better. Those are what my presentations are at ACES when I gave presentations there. When I've done
Mhm.
workshops, here's what to cut out to streamline your writing, to make it more powerful, more concise, and basically that's what I set about to do. But I wanted to do it with humor, um,
Right.
because editors, as you know, and writers will sit around, and it's for the people who go into a restaurant and look at a menu and see the misplaced apostrophes and the misspellings and the wrong words and the, or on billboards or whatever.
Mhm.
And they shake their head
Right.
in frustration. This is for them. It's for you, troubled, tormented souls.
It's clear you had a lot of fun writing it. What was your favorite part?
Um, God,
Do you have a favorite part?
I don't because it was so much fun throughout. I
Mhm.
guess my favorite chapter would be the one on bloat, because there's so much of
Okay.
it in especially in corporate writing, but in modern writing, people don't
Mhm.
edit. They just don't edit anymore. And if they do, they do is they fix spelling, and sometimes not even that.
Right.
But they don't
Yeah, because their spell checker does that for them.
allegedly. Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't differentiate between your and your, um,
Right,
or
or
there and
2
there
and
and
2 and yeah.
6,000 other
Right.
things. Uh, but people people could make their writing so much stronger and more flavorful by getting rid of dead words, getting rid of the styrofoam packing peanuts, and getting to the real stuff that they want to offer. Um,
Mhm.
so many people in our modern world have great ideas to share. They have wonderful ideas, but they don't express them well.
Mhm.
And so those brilliant ideas don't get imparted, don't make it through, and don't land because the reader tunes out. Just either goes
Right.
to another
It's
place
too
or just kind
complicated
of
or they can't get past it, yeah.
exactly your eyes glaze over as though you're in sixth grade and reading history. It just
Mhm.
and then you don't get to paragraph three, or if you do, you don't remember what's in paragraphs one and two.
Uh-huh.
So it's um, my my intent, my aim, my overall guiding purpose in the universe is to help people escape that trap and uh, get rid of dull, not just dull words, but filler words that aren't necessary. Get rid of the needless fluff
Mhm.
and get to the real substance. A couple of years ago at Aces in Providence, I gave a presentation called "Butchering Copy." Cutting out the gristle,
Okay.
meat, bone, and fat to get to the meat, or something like that.
Okay. Right,
And
right.
basically, it's making sure that the your audience, your reader, gets the full benefit of what you have to offer without having to deal with all the
Mhm.
extraneous stuff, verbal stuff.
You're reminding me of an essay I read on Hemingway once. This is sounds very much like him.
I am more Hemingway than Faulkner.
I as an author, I usually appreciate that in people. I like the people who get straight to the point.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, the thing is, and uh, it's not. I'm not saying this for the first time, and it's probably not my original thought anyway. But people say time is money, but time is far more valuable than money. It's time, and you can't.
Mhm.
You can always make money back. You can always recoup your funds, but once time is gone, it's gone.
I
And
agree.
beyond that,
I'm of the same mindset.
yeah, but beyond that, it's your reputation is at stake, your credibility as a writer. If you are putting yourself out in a blog or an email, the business email, I'm not talking about, you
Mhm.
know, a note to Aunt Sally or Uncle Jim. It's if you are writing a business email or a business blog or anything official for your uh, that is supposed to enhance your career, if you're not clear, um, then people either tune you out or they think less, and sometimes both. And that's unfortunate because, as I
Mhm.
say, people have great ideas, but if they don't express them properly, it's um, it's a waste of everyone's time.
Mhm. As someone who's been in those circles, like, it is such, like, a I don't know, a gut punch when you see a email that you wrote to, like, a client, and you're like, "Oh, man, that doesn't sound good," or I did something I was just in a hurry, and I
Yeah.
didn't stop and double check my own work. It just it makes you look so bad.
Right, right. Well, I mean, everyone has sent out a tweet with a typo or an email with a your where there should be a your or whatever. It
Mhm.
happens. It's muscle memory.
Right.
But um, if you're taking time to write a business blog post or an official paper or whatever, you have to build in time to edit it. And if you can hand it off to
Absolutely.
someone else, um, so much the better. When I was in
Mhm.
online publishing and I was writing about grammar or especially about proofreading, uh,
Mhm.
I would ask people to double and triple check it. Every editor, please take a look at this. Please let me know if there's anything at all wrong, because that
Mhm.
audience would jump right on that. Oh, you misspelled there, and or don't you mean such and such? And sometimes you have
Mhm.
to say, no, I meant exactly what I had to say. The whole comprises the parts, not the other way around. But
Mhm.
you try to do that without being um, too obnoxious about it. You just try to be as direct as possible. Clarity,
I have to
really,
ask, as an
speaking to people.
editor
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
oh, no, sorry, I was gonna say, I have to ask, as an editor, did you edit your own book? Or did you need a new set of eyes and give it to somebody else?
Um, yes and yes. Uh, I read through it half a dozen times, um, including once backward, which is what I suggest to proofreaders and copy editors when they're going over something, so that you don't get caught up
How do
too
you do
much
that?
in
Is that
the
one paragraph at a time
one
or one
paragraph
chapter
at
at
a
a
time.
time?
Yeah. So you're not worried so much about the storyline or the narrative. You're just reading purely
Mhm.
for typos, word choice, whatever, and read it out loud. But also, Teresa, in addition to being uh, everything wonderful in the world and a superb artist, also has a really keen eye for language. She
Mhm.
writes too, and so she read it and read it out loud to us. Um, so we made you know quintuply sure that there were no problems in it. And I just reread the book, for effect, in
'Cause
preparation.
that would suck.
Yeah, you.
A book
Oh
about
my
editing and it wasn't
God,
something
no. Oh,
missed.
yeah, it would be worse. You just have to, dig yourself a hole and jump in and then dig on top. No, it would be a disaster. But no, I reread it. I didn't see any problems, and so I'm very very happy about that. Yeah, no, but you have to have other people. You have to have a trusted set of eyes look
Mhm.
at what you've put forth, and that's what there's one example in the book that it seems that the editor was it was not his first language. English is not his first language, but that doesn't
Mhm.
excuse not having someone else take a look at it and fix it.
Right.
If you're uh,
Especially if you're publishing a language that isn't your first language.
right,
That seems
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's extra
Well,
necessary.
yeah, but I tutor I tutor students in Spain and elsewhere, and their English in many cases is better than some native speakers who are writing.
Probably better than mine.
Yeah, but if you put yourself forth um, as a writer, especially as a writing expert, if you're
Mhm.
writing about writing and you miss basic things, you're setting
Mhm.
yourself up for a fall. It's not good at all, and I've seen that
Mhm.
a number of times. So the self-anointed language experts waxing philosophical about language and they make basic mistakes, and it's unfortunate because they're only hurting themselves, and all it would take would be to hand off to somebody else, say, I need your honest opinion about this. Does this read
Mhm.
okay? And if someone else um, edits my stuff, as certainly has happened, and says, no, this doesn't work, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, I will cut that out.
That's what you need. You need that extra set of eyes because, I don't know, using myself as an example because that's the only example I have these days, is, it doesn't matter how many times I look at something, I my brain will fill in the gaps and I will miss something. Like, I need that third eye to look at it.
Well, you see those things on Facebook, whether it's Paris in the spring or whatever, where they have an extra word or a word is missing, or you can read the
Mhm.
word jumbled. Um,
Yeah, for me, it's usually the word that's missing.
yeah, yeah, but and we fill that in. That's why reading aloud and reading backward
Mhm.
helps you avoid that, because again, you
Mhm.
don't get into that the trap of being caught up in the flow of the narrative. You really
Mhm.
pay attention to the individual sentences and words and phrases.
Mhm. Also, I find reading out loud, um, it may even, like, tighten up the sentences because as you're reading your out loud, you're like, "Wow, this is wordy." Like, it's just sometimes that even that brings like, just reading out loud points that out to me personally.
hmm My the last um, chapter of the book is devoted to the notion of writing like you talk, which was
Mhm.
intended to cut out corporate speak, and that's great. That's people should really get rid of the fumpering corporate you know blathering.
Right.
But
And just sound like a normal person.
okay, here's an example. If you were to turn on one of the news talk shows on cable,
Mhm.
and you listen to these highly erudite public officials or journalists,
Mhm.
Pulitzer Prize winning columnists, and just transcribe what they say without editing it, it would be run ons and superfluous language, repetition,
Mhm.
redundancy. Um, so you can't write like you talk and put forth salient, cogent arguments without
Mhm.
editing, without fine tuning, and that's what editing is all about.
So, you're self-publishing this book, correct?
Yes, yes,
Or I guess you have self-published, I guess I should use
yeah.
past tense.
Through
Um,
Book Baby.
is that okay. Was that a part of the book, process that you're experienced with, or was this new for you?
This was our first book, and
Mhm.
Teresa shopped around. Because uh, I tried to reach out to other publishers, and um, everyone, most of them said, no, we already have a language writer. We have Mignon Fogarty, or we have
Mhm.
John McIntyre, who's already writing our stuff.
Right.
So Teresa looked into it and found recommendations, and Book Baby was one of them that was got very favorable response. And
Mhm.
so we looked into that, contacted them, and looked at their pricing and timetables, the rest. And they have a connection to directly to Amazon, through Amazon, pay on demand, but also they have their own
Mhm.
bookshop. So
Okay.
you don't have to order 100 books and try to go to flea markets and try to sell your book. It's
Right.
done through that, so you can link. And I know that some people love Amazon and some people do not like Amazon. So there are options. It's available through
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble online, uh, the Book Baby Bookshop, Amazon, and a bunch more. If you Google it, you can find probably a dozen um, uh, channels to buy it through. Um, and it they made it easy. Now, what helped was that Teresa has been a magazine art director, so knows the process of flowing copy and interspersing illustrations. And there are even little olives on a toothpick that separate the examples that she designed and placed. And so having her
Mhm.
expertise with crops and bleeds and things like that, just her knowledge
Right.
of how to package this stuff, that saved us money. Not having to hire them to edit it saved us money. And
Mhm.
we've done a lot of our own marketing. Now, again, I have a community of former colleagues and people through ACES and other and Twitter and LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
I've been able to market it that way, um, and I do a lot of hashtagging on Twitter to sell it. Um,
Mhm.
writing community, writers lift, book boost, and so on. And
Right.
I did a 12 days of Christmas parody, and I've done a lot of Burma shave type rhymes, centered around drinking, basically drinking and
Mhm.
terrible writing. And so it's a matter of getting creative and using social media the best way possible. I have a Facebook Why Editors Drink page. So really, you have to do a lot of the marketing yourself. Uh, but if you have a sense of that, as I did from online publishing and from having worked as marketing
Mhm.
governor for our theater group, and I have some idea of how to go about that and how not to go about
That's good. I feel like I have a fair number of conversations with new authors, and that seems like it's always their weak point, I guess. They either don't realize how much they have to put into working on the marketing side of it. They don't realize how much marketing has to be done in order to get just a fraction of sales.
it.
So that's
Mhm.
very good. I'm very happy for you that you had that network
Well,
already to
thanks.
fall
It's
back on.
it's 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 fun. You have to figure it out, but you also have to sort of compartmentalize. You have to say, okay, I'm going to
Mhm.
do 2 or 3 hours a week of this. That's part of
Mhm.
um, my authorship um,
Right.
commitment. Is I have to do, and so you set aside, and it might not be a 3 hour chunk. It might be half an hour today and an hour and a half another
Mhm.
day. And so that's it. Really, it, you don't have to be super disciplined about doing it every day at 8:47, but you have to make sure that you keep tabs on it. And dynamic tweets are great because you can just set a tweet to run every 4 days,
Mhm.
and then put them in rotation, and they'll appear on different days over the course of X number of weeks, different times of day, whatever, and figure out when you think you're
Mhm.
going to catch the most eyeballs.
Yeah, it is always the hard part is figuring out the algorithm and knowing when the best time to post something.
Hmm. And getting endorsements from your
So
friends.
what part of the So what's the part about in the publishing process that maybe threw you the biggest curveball, the something you weren't expecting?
In
Or was there anything?
publishing or promotion.
Okay.
Well,
That is always difficult.
yeah, it's uh, publishing was getting the work, and Teresa, as I said, did the lion's share of the
Mhm.
of the packaging it. There were points
Mhm.
where, oh well, this isn't going to break right over this page, so we need to edit a line here.
Right.
So okay, two words come out, and we bought a line, and that makes we pick up three
Mhm.
pages that way. It's just that's the way things flow. Um, and promotion has been can be difficult, but as I said, if you get disciplined about it and you have fun with it, and it depends on the book that you're doing. This is a humorous book, so and it's about wordplay and word interplay. So um, puns and bad poems and goofy jokes that
Mhm.
just feeds into it. Um, and
Mhm.
will appeal uh, to this audience. Um, my the sorts of Burma shave type thing that I did, the 4-line rhymes, that wouldn't work for the vampire werewolf crowd.
Uh-huh.
It's not young adult fiction, and that's not going to work there. This is, you know, crotchety old blokes like me who get angry about or vexed by bad hyphenation. I am
Mhm.
my own target audience. Um, but so
Okay.
it varies uh,
Mhm.
for each demographic, for the writing material itself and for the target audience.
So outside of Teresa, did you have any, third party help in the whole book publishing, editing, whatever process? Like, the process of getting that out to hands to people. Did you have any third party help?
I shared it with one other editor before
Mhm.
we went to press, and he made a suggestion about tightening up the introduction. And
Mhm.
um, he and I worked together at the Daily News. He's now at Newsday. He's a really brilliant editor, and so I asked him to look it over. He said he laughed a lot throughout, and he said that the one thing that I would do is just a lot of this exposition about your time in corporate America. Um, it, your time in corporate America, um, people might not be all that interested in it. It
Mhm.
waxes a little long, so maybe trim that. And I did. I cut about a page and a half of that, and it
Okay.
made the intro read much more quickly and briskly. And that's so
Mhm.
again, if you have to hand it off and ask for candid feedback, and that's what I
Right, so you can get to the meat to the story.
exactly.
So I know you said the audience was the people who nitpick reviews and online articles, but who would you say who should buy this book? Who are you marketing this book towards other than yourself?
Okay, it's for writers and editors, but it's also um, people who care about their writing, and especially if
Mhm.
anyone who writes in the course of a work week, whether it's an email or a blog post or whatever. But professional emails are a lot of them are just terrible. I've read them from
Mhm.
people who are trying to get a point
Mhm.
across, and they can't seem to do it. If you're doing if you're doing marketing on an amateur level, as I have done, as Teresa has done for our local theater group, you want to make sure that everything is clear. Your messaging is concise, but mostly that it's clear, that it's able to be understood. But I think it's a quick read. You can read it in a couple of hours. It's not
Mhm.
it's not Nicholas Nickleby. This is a quick, breezy read in bite-sized little um, uh,
Mhm.
compartments. And so a college student or even a high school student
Mhm.
would drinking references aside, because college students never drink. Um,
Right, no,
yeah,
never.
it would. I think it would help them to see. Okay, um, this is where I can make my writing better and stronger. And so before you
Mhm.
hand it into Mrs. Pickering and takes out her red pen and says, no, 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 none of this. You read my book, and then you can head that stuff off and make your writing stronger and and more flavorful, because word choice is a huge part of writing. And
Mhm.
not just to choose uh, big, expansive, elaborate words, but to choose the right words and to use the words
Right.
um, that will do the work um, of three other words. I often,
Mhm.
in my presentations, uh, I, I I talk about helper verbs. He was he was able to get to the border. Okay, did he get to the border? I don't know. he was able to, but I don't know
Mhm.
if he got there. Um,
Right.
I'm
We knew he could, we don't know if he did.
yes, I'm able to make my bed in the morning. I don't always make my bed in
Mhm.
the morning, but I have this ability. The bed does not go unmade, by the way. It's either Teresa or I. But the ability, if you say that a person accomplished something, then clearly they had the ability to do it. So that's inherent.
Mhm.
It's not only do you cut out the extraneous words, but you also are more clear about the actual result.
Mhm. As a writer, I get a lot of gifts of books that, I guess are sort of similar to yours, like how to write books, like how to write a plot, how to do this, I don't know, just
Mm.
those random ones. And I have to say, the sample you sent me was one of the clearest books of that type that I've ever received. It was you gave an example of like a bad way to do it, and then you showed how to clean it up and make it better.
Yeah, that's the whole book. That is basically it. And I
Mhm.
thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's what the whole book is about. It's it, it's easy to point out a problem um,
Mhm.
without offering a solution. A diagnosis without a remedy doesn't do anybody any good. Doctor, it
Right.
hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. It, you know, it's
Mhm.
and if you can provide the why and in a humorous, memorable way, I hope,
Mhm.
then it will stick. It will land, and then the writer, the reader who becomes the writer, will then assimilate it and will write better.
Right, and hopefully remember it next time,
Yep.
yeah. To answer my own question, I kinda feel like I you should give it to, like, every college student or every writer you know, just you might some of them, they might already know this stuff, like, it might be like, "Yes, I understand that," but some of them, it might be one thing that they hadn't realized they'd been doing wrong all these years or whatever.
That's
I feel like it'd
actually
be very useful to someone like that.
that's actually been a repeated theme in some of the reviews that I've gotten on Amazon. I never realized I was making these mistakes. Uh,
Mhm.
but for others, it will
Until it's
be,
pointed out that it is a mistake.
mhm. But for others, it will be, I've been saying this for years, and no one, here it is, this guy says it. So it's elucidation and affirmation, and some laughs along the way. I hope.
Excellent. Okay, so before we close up, just a quick review. Where can listeners find a copy of Why Editors Drink?
Okay, Why Editors Drink is on Amazon.com. It is on the Book
Mhm.
Baby Bookshop. It's available, I think, through Reader's Choice, barnesandnoble.com. If you Google Why Editors Drink, um, and in quotes, so Google finds it that way. Otherwise, you'll get endless dissertations about Ernest Hemingway and and Tennessee Williams, uh, and Truman Capote, for that matter. But if you do it in quote marks, then and if you add my last name, Reinalda, Reinalda, you'll find it on probably a dozen sites where you can buy it. You can choose your favorite. Uh, there's a
Awesome.
there's a Why Editors Drink Facebook page. You can follow me
Mhm.
on Twitter, word underscore czar, CZAR, and Rob Reinalda on LinkedIn.
Very humble. Sorry, I had to laugh at the word czar.
Words are, well,
Excellent.
someone asked recently, how did your Twitter handle come about? And I joined in the
Mhm.
very early days of Twitter, and I thought it was
Mhm.
like the second coming of CB radio, and I actually wrote
Mhm.
a column about it to that effect. So I chose something goofy. I said, okay, words
Mhm.
are. And words are solid was already taken by somebody with 19 followers or whatever. So I put an underscore in there, and basically as a joke, and it stuck.
Mhm.
It stuck. People loved word czar. So and now it's my company is word czar.
I do have to admit,
People,
it is pretty awesome.
thank you, thank you. It's fun. It's it does get some attention, and it's a faux braggadocio.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a guest today. This was great.
Thanks. I've enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope I'm glad you liked the book, and I hope everyone buys a copy and gives 3 copies, and has a yabba dabba do time with it.
Read and Write Podcast is edited and produced by Deborah Z. Barth. Music was provided by Lo-Fi Girl and can be found at lofigirl.com or on their YouTube channel. Audio effects were created by Red Octopus and Black River Phonogram. Show notes and previous episodes can be found at readandwritepodcast.com.